4:32 a.m. Cotton Club basement. The air is thick with expensive tobacco and old sweat that never leaves brick. 12 men form a tight, hungry circle. One man sits in the middle. Bumpy Johnson, hat on, coat buttoned, calm eyes. A pistol kisses his temple. Cold metal, warm breath behind it. You can hear a safety click, like a coffin latch. Somebody laughs low and mean. Somebody else counts out loud. 20 seconds, Harlem. Bumpy doesn't flinch. He lifts a glass of Hennessy. The glass is sweating in his palm. He takes a slow sip anyway, like he's tasting Sunday, not death. The basement smells like money and fear. The men smell like cologne and resentment, and something sharper, panic hiding under bravado. They think he's trapped. No door, no window. Just him, a chair, and 12 shadows. They think this is the ending. The gun presses harder. A bead of sweat crawls down Bumpy's neck. He doesn't wipe it. He just looks at the man holding him, looks past him really, at the whole room, at the angles, at the exits they forgot he knows. Because Bumpy already knows their names, their vices, their debts. Who cheated on who? Who's carrying a razor in his sock? Who's praying nobody notices his shaking hands? Do it, one of them says. Do it and be done. And Bumpy finally speaks, soft, almost bored. Before sunrise, every one of you breaks. The room goes still. Even the gunman hesitates. Then the trigger starts to move, and that's when the lights go out. Not a flicker. A hard, total blackout. You hear a chair scrape. You hear a breath held too long. You hear someone whisper, "What the?" And in the dark, Bumpy says, "Now we can talk honest." Then a match strikes somewhere close. A tiny flare, a brief orange eye. It shows one thing on the table, a playing card, the ace of spades. And the men realize too late this basement was never their trap. It was his. But how does a man survive 12 guns? How does he walk out breathing when the city wants him buried and the night wants blood? Harlem lore doesn't begin with bullets. It begins with a dress, a pretty dress and cheap perfume. It begins with music spilling into a hallway, and a girl who trusted the wrong door. Bumpy's niece wasn't a gangster, she wasn't a soldier, she was family, and family was the only thing that could turn Bumpy's smile into stone. The story is told in barbershops, in back rooms behind poker games, in whispers over a steaming bowl of beans. They say she went to a party, a private one, men with slick hair and heavy rings, men who treated Harlem like a buffet, and something happened in that room, something unforgivable, something that made the air leave her lungs and made her eyes go far away. Harlem knew before she made it home. Harlem always knows. Pain travels faster than taxis. Bumpy heard it from a woman crying. He heard it from a bartender's tight mouth. He heard it from the way men suddenly couldn't meet his eyes. He didn't scream. He didn't smash a bottle. He just went quiet. The kind of quiet that makes even loud men swallow hard. But there was a problem. There's always a problem. Because the men at that party weren't just some street punks. They were tied to bigger engines, to suits downtown, to the kind of money that hires cops like doormen. In those days, power had last names. The 5 families had receipts. Dutch Schultz had a temper and a payroll. Men like that didn't argue, they erased you, and someone close to Bumpy helped set the night in motion, not because he hated Bumpy, because life squeezed him until he broke. A runner, a small-time connector, a man with a sick child at home, a daughter with a cough that wouldn't stop. Tuberculosis, the doctor said. Medicine costs more than pride, and the wrong people offered relief. Just tell us where he'll be, they said, just one time. Then your girl gets treated. So he talked. And in Harlem, words can be fatal, especially the kind spoken for money. Bumpy knew the betrayal as soon as it happened. He could smell it on the wind, like rain on hot asphalt. But he didn't rush into gunfire. He never did. He waited. He listened. He planned. Because grief can make a man stupid. But Bumpy's grief made him sharp. Sharper than the knives those men kept under their tongues. Bumpy Johnson didn't rule Harlem by being the loudest. He ruled by being the quietest. By hearing what others missed, by seeing through walls made of lies. He had unseen eyes everywhere, not spies in trench coats, working people, the ones everyone ignores. The parking attendant who palmed your keys and palmed your secrets with them. The shoe shine boy who knelt by your shoe and listened to your bragging. The janitor who emptied ashtrays and read names off matchbooks. Harlem ran on talk, and Bumpy owned the language. He'd tip a man a dime and get a confession worth 1,000. He kept notebooks too, not like a gangster, like a student. Dates, places, habits, who drank gin when nervous, who chewed ice when lying, who wore gloves in July because he feared fingerprints. At night he read real books, heavy ones, Shakespeare, Voltaire, philosophy that tasted like smoke. He read about kings and betrayals, about power and consequence, and he wrote in the margins like he was studying war, because he was. When the story of his niece reached him, he didn't just want revenge. He wanted control of the narrative. He wanted the city to understand a new rule had been written, so he started collecting truth, not rumors, truth that could stand up in daylight. He found out who hosted the party, who poured the drinks, who guarded the door, who laughed too loud afterward, and who went silent the next day. He learned which man had a weak jaw from an old boxing injury, which man had asthma, which man was on parole and couldn't afford a hospital visit. He learned which men were cowards. Most were. Cowards are common. They just travel in packs. Then he learned the most important thing, where they felt safe, where they thought Harlem couldn't reach them, where they'd go to celebrate how untouchable they were. And he learned who was holding the leash, not the party boys, not the loudmouths, the money behind them, the men who wore clean suits and dirty intentions. Bumpy didn't aim at the trigger first. He aimed at the hand that paid for the gun. That's what made him dangerous. Not violence, precision. When he moved like chess, not checkers. Sacrifice a piece here, pin a king there, win without looking like you fought. So when word went out that Bumpy would be handled, Bumpy already knew the hour, already knew the basement, already knew the circle, and he walked into it anyway, not to die, to teach. Harlem at night was a living animal. It breathed jazz through cracked windows. It bled neon onto wet pavement. It smelled like roasted chestnuts, cheap gin, and the sweet burn of good cigars. You could stand on Lenox Avenue and hear three worlds at once. A trumpet crying from a club doorway. A preacher warning from a stoop. A couple arguing in a hallway thin as paper. Small's paradise pulsed like a heartbeat. Lenox Lounge held elegance like it was a secret weapon. And on 133rd Street, men stood in doorways like punctuation marks. Commas. Periods. Exclamation points with knives. The numbers racket wasn't just crime. It was oxygen. It was a dream you could buy for a nickel. When you made $7 a week, hope had to be small enough to fit in your pocket. A little slip of paper. A lucky number. A prayer folded into ink. Women played numbers between washing laundry and raising children. Men played numbers between shifts and bruised hands. And everybody knew the odds were cruel. But the odds were honest, at least. More honest than landlords, more honest than banks. Bumpy understood that. He understood Harlem didn't worship him. Harlem used him, the way a drowning man uses driftwood, and violence had a rhythm here, not constant, not random, a pattern, a silence between heartbeats. One moment, laughter and music. The next, a sudden hush, a glance, a door closing too softly, a cab driving way too fast. People learned to read that hush, because that hush meant somebody was about to pay. On the night Bumpy was lured, Harlem felt that hush early. You could taste it in the air. Even the streetlights looked tired. Even the wind sounded cautious. In a brownstone, a woman prayed. In a back room, a man loaded a pistol. In a kitchen, a mother held her child and tried not to cough. And somewhere, men who thought themselves kings laughed about a girl at a party. They laughed like consequences were for other people. For Harlem has a long memory, and Bumpy Johnson was a part of Harlem that refused to forget. Back to 4:32 a.m. Back to the Cotton Club basement. Back to the circle of 12. The lights go out hard, pitch black, no moon through windows, no mercy from bulbs, just the sound of breathing and the sudden truth of fear. In darkness, bravado collapses fast. You can't posture at a shadow. You can't intimidate what you can't see. Someone curses. Someone shuffles. A shoe scuffs concrete. A man whispers, "He's moving." Bumpy's voice stays level. "You boys like surprises," he says. He says, so do I. Here's what they didn't know. Bumpy didn't come alone. He came with the building. The Cotton Club wasn't just glamour upstairs. Downstairs, it was corridors and keys. It was staff who knew who tipped well. It was men who'd been disrespected by the same suits now holding guns. A janitor with a ring of keys. A bartender with a grudge. A doorman who'd been slapped once and never forgot the sting. Bumpy bought loyalty with respect, not just cash. He remembered names. He paid for funerals. He kept kids fed when fathers vanished. And he did something smarter than muscle. He used timing. He used darkness. He used the one thing a gunman hates most: uncertainty. The blackout wasn't an accident, it was scheduled, a fuse pulled at the right second, a city trick, simple as breathing, deadly as a prayer. In the dark, 12 men tightened up. They pressed close together for comfort. That was their mistake. Crowds make cowards feel strong. Crowds also make cowards easy to control. A match flares, that tiny orange eye, and for one heartbeat, faces appear like ghosts. Bumpy's hand places something on the table, not a gun, a card. Ace of spades, black as a verdict. Anybody shoots, Bumpy says, and the first one hit won't be me. They don't understand yet. Then they hear it, the click of another safety. Not one gun, several from different corners. The circle isn't a circle anymore. It's a box with unseen walls, and the man with the pistol finally realizes his problem. In the dark, he can't be sure. Is Bumpy alone? Or is the basement full of barrels aimed at his spine? Bumpy leans in, voice low. I know about the party, he says. I know who laughed. I know who watched. I know who touched what wasn't theirs. A man tries to speak. His words stick. Because guilt is a gag when the room is honest. Bumpy continues, soft and surgical. And I know who paid you. That's the twist. Not the trapdoor. Not the blackout. The information. Because Bumpy has names. Real names. Not street names. Names that lead to offices downtown. Names that lead to judges' golf buddies. Names that lead to wives who think their husbands are saints. He isn't threatening them with bullets first. He's threatening them with daylight. The gunman's finger relaxes. Just a hair. And in that hair's width, Bumpy makes his move. He doesn't rush. He doesn't roar. He speaks one sentence. A sentence like a hammer. You're gonna walk out, he says, and you're gonna remember pain. After that, the story gets told in 100 different ways. Some say Bumpy's men rushed them. Some say fists flew like rain. Some say bottles shattered. Some say the basement floor was a clinic by dawn. What we know is the aftermath. Ambulances at first light, men with bandaged heads, men holding broken pride, men trying to hide their faces from the very neighborhood they thought they could violate. By sunrise, every man at that party had learned the same lesson. Harlem doesn't forgive weakness disguised as power. And Bumpy Johnson doesn't let family pain go unpaid. But he still wasn't finished. Not with them. Not with the man who sold the location. Not with the money behind the laughter. Because a message without a witness is just a secret. Bumpy believed in messages. He believed in letting the world carry them. He also believed in mercy sometimes. Not soft mercy. Strategic mercy. In that basement, one man didn't get touched. One man stayed upright. The traitor. The runner with the sick child. He was shaking so hard his teeth clicked like dice. He kept whispering, please. Not for himself. For the girl at home coughing into a handkerchief. Bumpy looked at him a long time. Long enough to hear the building settle. Long enough to smell the Hennessy again. Long enough to feel the city waiting. Why? Bumpy asks. One word. A blade. The man can barely breathe. They promised medicine, he says. They promised a doctor. His voice cracks on the last word. Bumpy doesn't explode. He nods once, like he's filing it away. Then he steps closer, quiet as velvet. He adjusts the man's collar. Almost fatherly, almost kind, and his voice drops into a hush. The devil always pays, he says. Just not in your currency. He reaches into his pocket. Not for a gun, for cash. Folded neat. Clean bills that smell like ink. He presses it into the trader's palm. For your daughter, he says, so she sees another season. The man looks up, confused. Hope is a dangerous drug. Bumpy knows that too. Then Bumpy adds the price. And you, he says, are going to deliver something for me. A name, an address, a sentence to repeat to the man who paid for the party, a sentence that would turn a powerful face pale. Tell him, Bumpy says, he can buy cops, he can buy guns, he can't buy respect in Harlem. Not anymore. He pauses, then finishes, and tough him this. If he ever reaches for my family again, I won't break bones. I'll break his future. That's the code. Loyalty over money. Protection over profit. A neighborhood over a payday. Bumpy lets the traitor live, not because he's weak, because he wants the story carried, because fear is contagious when delivered by the living. And when the traitor stumbles out, he has two things in his hand: cash for a dying child, and the weight of a message he can't set down. Back in the basement, Bumpy lifts his glass again. The cognac is warm now. The ice has melted. Time has moved forward. He looks at the ace of spades still sitting on the table, a small black symbol, a reminder that luck isn't magic. Luck is planning done in the dark. Then he stands, coat straight, hat low, and he walks out alive. Not because nobody tried to kill him, because he made killing him too expensive. So what do you do with that story? Do you call it justice? Do you call it terror? Do you call it love wearing a violent mask? Because that's the question Harlem wrestled with. Bumpy Johnson protected people. Bumpy Johnson hurt people. Sometimes he did both in one night. If your family was harmed and the law wouldn't even look up, what would you do? Would you wait for help that never comes, or would you become the help, even if it stains your hands? Was Bumpy a hero or a villain with good manners? Tell me which one you believe, and tell me why. And if you think this night ended the war, you don't know the era yet, because bigger names were already circling. Men who didn't fear Harlem legends. Men who moved entire cities like chess pieces. In the next story, Bumpy's world collides with the architects of crime, the kind of men Lucky Luciano made famous. And later, Harlem itself would change again, with voices like Malcolm X rising into the same streets Bumpy once ruled in silence. So subscribe if you want the truth, the kind that smells like tobacco and rain. And comment below, if you were Bumpy, would you have shown mercy or made the night even colder?